Hello, and welcome to Lit by Moonlight, where it's not a phase to be unable to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality.
It's true. I haven't done that in a long time. So today we're going to be talking about Shirley Jackson's Haunting of Hill House. In said book, Eleanor Vance is leaving, right? She's finally leaving. She's taking the car she owns half of with her sister and driving to Hill House. What could possibly go wrong when journeys end in lovers meeting? And so far, she's met Theo, Luke, and Dr. Montague, who all seem like lovely people. However, Eleanor cannot say the same about Hill House, which is, in a word, horrible. Shirley Jackson tells us better than anyone what it's like. She says Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, brick met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there walked alone.
I'm Caitlin, and there is nothing better than falling asleep to the sounds of pouring rain.
It's true.
And other news, I slept fantastically last night. I woke up in the middle of the night and I just, heard pouring rain. And I literally thought to myself, I'm like, that's the good shit. And I slept so soundly.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this fall weather. I feel like this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm meant to exist for.
This is the best season.
An extended period of time. Yeah. I'm Emberlyn, and I am cosplaying as Theodora today because I want to both be her and I want her. And
yeah, that's valid.
I think both of those are fair things to desire.
You're killing it.
I know. So, starting with the big question of this book, we're jumping right into our Sbooktacular Booktober. Wait.
Oh, I see what you
October. I don't remember my own marketing.
Sbooktacular.
October. Somewhere in there is the word spooktacular, and somewhere in there is the word book, and somewhere in there is the word October.
I appreciate it because we could have easily said Booktober, but I like Sbooktober.
It is good.
Hold on, I can get it. Sbooktacular October.
Yeah.
Oh, that really wiggles my wagon.
Yeah. We made a choice.
I like the choice.
It is a good choice. I think it was your idea, so because I don't know how to come up with Sbooktacular Booktober. I was like, I don't think I even know how to make words go together that way. So
yeah, no, that has Caitlin written all over it. So yeah,
great work. I was gonna say you really seem to like it, so I have a feeling it was you.
I don't remember making this up when we were going through all of this way back in March, but yeah, it seems like something I would come up with.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, so as I was saying, we're diving in, right? We're going to be reading horror novels essentially all month. 4 of them to be exact, because there's like 4 months in October-ish, maybe more.
There should be 4 months in October.
4 weeks, 4 years, whatever. Time is a social construct.
Time is a construct.
And as we dive into October, I'm curious to know, I think we all are, for the sake of this spooky time of year, what scares you, Caitlin?
Let's unpack this. No. As far as like in general,
I mean, I guess within the constraints of the horror genre, both film and literature.
Well, but
you can go there if you want to.
No, we don't have time to unpack all that. For books, this was actually the first book that I've ever read in the horror genre. I've just never really taken the time to go and read a horror novel, because it's not that I don't like horror, it's just, or scary stuff in general, it's just that I usually gravitate more towards film for that, because I feel like if I'm seeing it, it scares me more than just reading it. That's an assumption I've made about myself, considering this is the first novel that I've read in the horror genre. But that being said, if something's gonna scare me, it has to be like really convincing story, which, like, duh. But with horror, I feel like oftentimes it's easy for me to not be scared because I feel like this sounds like horror doesn't scare me. like it does, trust me. But oftentimes for me, it's easy for me to not be scared because I can just be like, nah, that's not real, because
Right.
it's just not. But if it's still a good story, I'll be invested, and that's why for movies I enjoy the psychological horror as well, because usually they're based on something in real life that could actually happen, and that's what scares me, because it's like, this could happen to you, and I'm just want to be like, no, I don't want it to. Please stop.
Right.
And I like the trope, I guess, in horror where there's something that's coming after you, but it's slow and it takes its time, because no matter how fast or far you run, it knows it's gonna get to you anyway. So. And just the thought of something like constantly after you, that's terrifying. So
It is disjointing and it is scary. Like, I feel like there's some classic examples of that. Like, we watched this the other day, but like Us, where it's pretty clear that the tethers, well, no spoilers if you've never seen Us. Please, I don't know, fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
But like, it's pretty clear that the tethers are coming for the people who are like above ground. And like the whole movie from kind of the start ish. Yeah. And that's what makes it so interesting, is like the whole movie you're kind of just like, when are they gonna show up? And they do, and you're like, like you expect it, but it's still terrifying.
Oh, that movie was so good.
It was.
I mean, I'm saying nothing new here, but it was just freaking phenomenal. Oh my god. When like the little girl just starts running, and then like the tethered version of her is just like, yeah, take your time, I'm gonna catch up to you anyway.
Yeah, she's just like, her whole face, she was like,
not impressed.
Yeah. BFFR, be fucking for real. Like, I'm coming for you, bitch.
Yeah, that was creepy. So this is a very good example of that. Also, Get Out.
Yeah, Get Out was another one where it was like, you kind of knew something was coming, you kind of knew something was going to happen. You get that in the very beginning with like the run rabbit scene. Yeah. But then later on it's like, yeah. Like, you better run. Yeah. Psychological thriller, well, horror, not thriller, is one of my favorite subgenres. I feel like anything that evokes, and it feels like it's not just a story, but also like a work of art where there's been like clear attention played, like for example by Jordan Peele with most of his films, all of his films, to like the lighting, the right camera angles, etc. Like, amazing. Like some of the best work I think in horror that I know of.
Same.
Another thing that gets me is gothic horror. I love gothic horror. Like, I love like black and white or like Victorian era stories, like Crimson Peak, Turn of the Screw, have you ever seen, I was Witch? Witch really gets me going, but nothing really has taken me there like a good haunted house. And that's why I am so fucking excited for us to talk about Haunting of Hill House today, and I think that gives us a good opportunity to transition into talking a little bit more about that now. Woo-hoo. So let's get into it.
Let's do it. Was there a specific moment in this book that hooked you?
I don't think there was a moment. I think from the beginning, what causes me to gravitate toward this book is Eleanor's internal dialogue. When she's driving to Hill House, there's just something about the way she describes the trees and the two lions and the life she's never had that is like really haunting and thought-provoking and like scary to me, because there's kind of a part of you, I think, when you're first reading that's like, oh, she's different. Like, yeah. she's an oddball. But there's also something a bit relatable about that yearning for this life that you could have. I'll read you a little excerpt from the book. On the way into town, she says, I could live there all alone, she thought, slowing the car to look down the winding garden path to the small blue front door with perfectly a white cat on the step. No one would ever find me there, either, behind all of those roses, and just to make sure, I would plant oleanders by the road. I will light a fire for the cool evenings and toast apples at my own hearth. I will raise white cats and sew white curtains for the windows and sometimes come out of my door to go to the store to buy cinnamon and tea and thread. Maybe people will come to me to have their fortunes told, and I will brew love potions for sad maidens. I will have a robin. And then she kind of trails off. And I have that highlighted in my book like a million times over, like with scribbles, because like I can't give you like, I can't fully articulate. I don't think I'll ever be able to fully articulate the mix of feelings that line gives me. Those lines give me. It's like warmth and coziness, but also kind of like sadness and like grief.
Yeah, because it's like, you know, everyone daydreams of like a life that like, oh, if I lived there, this is what I would do, this is what my life would be like. Like, even though like it maybe it's not completely attainable, I feel like for Eleanor in this moment, it's like she's been wanting to get away for so long, just like trying to dream herself of this nice life where she can be just happy and content. It's just, it's really sad knowing that she doesn't get that, and apparently I can't articulate my feelings about it either, but I know what you're saying.
Right, like I think you're summing it up right. Like what she's
it's a yearning.
What makes what she's talking about sad is that it's not real, and that's like the central horror of this book for me, is that the life Eleanor dreams of having doesn't exist. She only really has the tragedy of her past as her mother's caretaker and the remnants of that life that she can't possibly put back in together into something that resembles what she's describing here, since she's now heading to Hill House.
Right.
She's like kind of doomed from the beginning, and it's sad. It's like, oh, like you are walking into it.
Don't think too hard on that dream, because you're not gonna see it.
Some dreams are meant to stay dreams.
Oh, poor baby.
What was your hook for this book? What really got you interested and made you want to keep reading?
Well, what got me hooked actually was that it was going to be completely different from the Haunting of Hill House story that I knew, which came from the Netflix series that came out in 2018. I knew this was a book, so I just assumed that the series was adapted like from that exactly. If I knew at one point that it wasn't an actual adaptation, I completely forgot. So but immediately, like, because I started reading this book and I was like, I know this story, it'll be interesting to get the book version of it. And then I started reading and it immediately became apparent, hey, this is not the same thing as the show, which I was like, cool, because I thought I knew how it was going to go, but then it was like a whole new story for me. So that in and of itself was the hook for it for me.
Yeah, I remember when I first read it for the first time as well, just being like, this is a completely different direction than I thought it was going, because I saw Mike Flanagan's series first. Yeah. And I love Mike Flanagan's series, and I'm excited because we'll probably dive into that more later on in the episode. But it's definitely one of those things where I came into it with one idea of how it was going to go, and it went in a very different direction, but it was a direction that I was like really interested in and liked a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there. As you were reading the book, Caitlin, were there any lines that stuck out to you? Did you find yourself highlighting anything that resonated with you?
Yeah, I actually highlighted a lot in this book. There was just some really good lines, but I narrowed it down to two. The first one was Eleanor saying, "I think I'm going to cry," she thought, like a child sobbing and wailing. "I don't like it here." And this is when Eleanor is inside Hill House for the first time, and I really, really liked it because of the feelings it evoked. And reading it, I was like, ooh, here we go. It's time for the spookiness. And you can just feel how uneasy Eleanor is, especially because she compares herself to a crying child. I like that because I feel like everyone, when we're at our most uncomfortable or scared, we revert back to like a childlike vulnerability of wanting to just go home or wanting your mom or dad or parent or whatever. And so when Eleanor says, "I don't like it here," it's so very much like her going, "I want to go home." And it makes me really sad for her because, like, she could, but she can't because this is her escape from the life that she doesn't want to be in anymore. Which really sucks.
It's like, hey, like, do you want to go back to the worst outcome or the other worst outcome? Like, which bad outcome do you want?
There is no escape. We can't escape, we cannot come out.
Mama.
No, but it's just so sad when she's like, just at anything when everyone's just like, I just like someone just says, I just want to go home. Like that sentence to me is just so sad because it's just like you're yearning for it, and Eleanor has a lot of yearning.
Yeah.
So just when she's just like, and it is in italics, I don't like it here. I'm like, oh baby.
And what makes it even sadder is like she clearly goes into this with like a very childlike innocence about her, maybe because of how sheltered she is by just like living as her mom's caretaker for so long.
Yeah.
Like, so she's already in like way over her head, right?
Oh,
like,
100%.
Like it's not looking good. I feel like it would be like if you threw one of the Westboro Baptist Church kids from youth group right into like a pride parade and you were like best wishes and kindest regards. Which I respect. But here it's sad because this
100%.
girl's so underdeveloped in her like perception of the world, and now it's worse for her.
Yeah, she's just going through it. And then the second quote I had was, the spirits dwelling in this house may be actually suffering because they are aware you are afraid of them. And I love this so much because genuinely I've always felt bad for ghosts that are just like chilling. Or listen, I believe in ghosts 100%. You cannot convince me otherwise. And I always feel bad for the ghosts because that are just like chilling or they're lost and just not doing any harm to you, but people are so terrified of them. Like imagine being a ghost, you're unable to move on completely yet, and you're trying to find peace, and the place you're stuck in is full of people who are terrified of you, but you can't reason with them and be like, no, it's fine, I'm just chilling for a little bit, I'm not ready to go. Like, right. You can't communicate. And I also just like that the line gave some personification to the ghosts living in Hill House, as if they're not actually the antagonists that we have thus far believed them to be in the story. Like I like that Mrs. Montague is the one who's saying this line. Like I like that she's just like, have you thought about their feelings? Like like chill out, Eleanor. Like it's not always about you. It never is, but this time it really isn't. But like it just made me think about ghosts, and sometimes I just want them to know, hey, if you're here, like the ghosts that came with me from my cousin's house, they're my friend.
Yeah.
That little guy, they're just chilling.
Any
as long as
here?
they're not causing you harm, they're fine.
I literally love the prospect of us like selling shirts on Etsy that are like, any ghosts here? You're my
Any
friend.
ghosts here? Like, if you're a ghost, you're my friend. If
you're a ghost, we're friends. No question about it. One thing about me is all my friends are ghosts. They're dead.
Oh my god. That makes so many things makes so much more sense. Like why I kept walking through the wall the other day.
Sorry you had to find out this way.
It's all good. I mean, we're friends, so it works out.
Yeah. At least you got a friend out of it.
Exactly.
The whole being a ghost thing.
There's like a matching shirt that says I am a ghost and she is my friend. It's like I'm with my ghost friend and then like pointing, and then the other one says I'm the ghost friend.
I'm the ghost friend. Yes. Oh my god. Yep. Yep.
So did you have any favorite quotes from Haunting of Hill House?
Kind of go along with what you said about Eleanor and how like lonely and like kind of childlike she is. This quote is from when Eleanor is sitting at I think it was like the diner, and she was having coffee, and there's this little girl with her parents who doesn't want the milk that her parents are trying to give her. And her mom says calmly she wants her cup of stars. And Eleanor thought, indeed, so do I. A cup of stars, of course. And the mother goes on to explain that it's this cup where if she drinks from it in the very bottom, there's like a design of some stars in it, which is so cool. Yeah. May or may not have bought that on Etsy after reading that line. So Eleanor's response is, don't do it. Insist on your cup of stars. Once they've trapped you into being like everyone else, you will never see your little cup of stars again. Don't do it. And the little girl glanced at her and smiled a little subtle, dimpling, wholly comprehending smile, and shook her head stubbornly at the glass. Brave girl, Eleanor thought. Wise, brave girl. And I distinctly remember having to like sit with that line for like several minutes after reading it, because it just like eats away at you. Isn't that what we all want? Is our little cup of stars?
Yeah.
I wanted it so bad I got it on Etsy after this. But it's sadder when you think about who's saying it, because it's this young woman who's like incredibly sheltered and like has this very childlike innocence about the world. that like totally blinds her from being able to see things the way they are, and it's too late for her cup of stars. Basically, like it's too late for her home with the white lions. She's cursed in the beginning, and I feel like that's what you learn from the scene, and it kind of hints at it. It makes you sad. Like
it is so sad when you have a character who's just doomed from the start, because it's like it doesn't matter what happens in the story, it's not going to end well for them, and it's so good, but it's so sad. I don't
it's
like
good
it.
because it's rare. I feel like a lot of the books I read now, they're like, and everybody actually lived at the end, and I'm like, like sometimes I love that,
which is great. Sometimes I need that, like when someone's like, everyone lived except for this person. I'm just like, why was that necessary?
Yeah, but, or it's the main person, and they're like, there's no sequel. I'm like, even better.
Yeah. I like the branching out in that genre, but oh my, it's just sad. It's just like, no matter what happens throughout the story, they're gonna die at the end. Isn't there's a book that called they both die in the end, correct?
There is.
Yeah
I
haven't read it because the title makes me sad alone. So like, I know how it ends, I don't need to. The
title does some foreshadowing. Yeah.
What if that book is just like, they both die at the end, you read it, and at the end it's just like, psych! They live.
The worst part is you know what you're getting. It's like with the Song of Achilles. Like, everyone knows what happens to fucking Achilles, but you're still like, what if it's different this time?
Well, that's why that book really threw me for a loop, because I'm just like, I know Achilles dies, and that book is told from Patroclus' perspective, and then, spoiler alert, Patroclus dies first. And I was like, huh? No!
Literally, that's my favorite thing about reading or like watching historical fiction, is it's like, you kind of, I mean, for the most part, you kind of know what happens. Like, it's nice when they throw a little curveball in there, but like, I'm literally rewatching The Crown right now, and I'm like, just sitting here like, maybe it'll be different this time.
Nothing bad happened to Diana ever.
No, she's here with us. She's and someone, my therapist is like, and is Princess Diana in the room with you now? And I'm like, yeah, she's my ghost friend.
I told you, all my ghosts are friends.
All of my friends are ghosts, and all of my ghosts are friends. So okay, in the book, there's this great scene. It's kind of been not imitated. It's been recreated many times in film and television adaptations of The Haunting, where Eleanor is kind of like waltzing through the house, kind of maybe possibly to her death.
No, don't say that.
What song would you waltz to through the halls of Hill House?
I would waltz to, although it's not really a waltzy song, maybe more of a slow dance through the halls of Hill House.
Yeah.
If I go, I'm going, by Gregory Alan Isakov, and it did actually. I was like, oh, I know it's gonna be that song. So I feel like that's just perfect for Hill House. And then I remembered it played during the last episode of the Netflix series, and it's just a perfect song.
It is
for that story. And also just for slow dancing in general, I feel like it's just very emotional. There's something kind of nostalgic about it. And so if I had to waltz through the halls of Hill House, it would be that. But hopefully I wouldn't be waltzing through the halls of Hill House, because I kind of don't want to go there.
I don't really want to go to Hill House, first and foremost. I was thinking this the other day. You know it's fall when the Gregory Alan Isakov comes out, because that's when I think I listen. I was on the back porch gardening yesterday, and I realized at some point that I had been listening to the same song on repeat for like 3 hours without realizing. It was Amsterdam. And
oh my God,
just the entire, and I was like, this is great. And then at one point I looked at the clock, and I was like, 3 hours later, and I was like, it's 6:00, and I've been listening to this forever. Great.
I love that you didn't notice. Just like an endless loop.
Yeah, endless loop of Gregory Alan Isakov, which sounds kind of haunting too, honestly.
It is.
Great choice, though.
Great choice, especially for fall.
Yeah. Mine was Thanks for the Dance by Leonard Cohen, who is, by the way, like, so fascinating. Like, I recommend dipping into his Wikipedia page. But the song is such a great representation of the role that the dance plays in the book's lore. Like, the dance from one room to another, the images of Nell spinning through the house, a little delirious as she makes her way to the tower. I felt. I was like, wow.
I feel like just the imagery of like someone dancing, because it's something that's so like carefree and like this is how you express yourself, but the fact that she's doing it and she's not completely like present is just like, it's something. I can't find the words, but it's haunting in itself, where it's like you have total not even control, but like you're doing all of this with your body and yet you're not here.
Yeah, and I think about like Flanagan's interpretation of that scene where he interlays that with Eleanor's husband and their wedding dance in the show, which in the show obviously Eleanor's gets married and has kind of a full life before she doesn't anymore. And I remember sobbing like a baby for that scene.
Yeah.
So much, a lot. Like, ow. That's all.
Great review.
Ow.
Ow. That's how I felt though. It's just ow.
Like, ooh, right in my heart, in my abdomen. Thanks.
Thank you so much for this.
In my tear ducts. Cool.
So what character would you give a lovely little cup of stars to?
Probably Eleanor, because she's so vulnerable. The house knows this. That's why it chooses her. She arrives with her heart on her sleeve and this aforementioned innocence about things and like hopefulness and blind hopefulness, really. And the house was essentially like, not today, bitch. Like, best wishes, warmest regards. And then it proceeded to drive her madder than she already probably was, which is like, why?
Really sad.
Yeah. Feels a little ableist, if you ask me. Just might be taking up a disability, an ADA, and a case with the Haunting of Hill House.
With the Hill House.
It's going to be Emberlyn Legia versus the Haunting of Hill House.
versus
Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House. The people that haunt Hill House, yeah. I just want to talk.
You know, we said that ghosts are our friends, but those ghosts are not our friends.
No, not ADA compliant. Come on. Let people who are already like going through it not have to go through more things.
Right.
That's my hot take. Kind of controversial, but nah, you know.
I mean to ruffle any feathers here, but
yeah.
Stop.
So, how about you?
I also said Eleanor because she just needs a hug and a friend.
Yeah.
And maybe some tea in her cup of stars. Like, I just like the entire book, I just wanted to take her and be like, I'm going to take you out of this house and we're going to get you a nice little apartment and you're going to be alone, not alone, but like with a friend. You're going to be by yourself. You're going to have a whole new life for the rest of your life and it's going to be great and you're going to be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But unfortunately, she was words on a page, and I am me, so I couldn't do that for her. So, what character would you like to watch die?
I like that. That's the question. Like the question. Like, who do you want to watch die? I don't remember if I ever like changed this from the last time I asked this question, which I think was maybe for like what we do in the shadows or something. Because I feel like,
I think that's what it was.
Because I'm like, why would I even ask you that?
Because I read that today and I was just like, who do I get to watch die? Nobody, but that makes sense because it's ghosts, so I'll go with it.
Yeah, that's weird. I feel like I don't dislike any characters in this book, really.
Yeah, same.
Not really. Like, I feel like there aren't a lot of books where it's like, this person sucks. Like, this person deserves to be, like, honorable mention for The Cruel Prince.
That's probably the only book we reviewed where we're like, now this person sucks.
Yeah, like that just needs to be put down. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not so much here. Not. It's really a bit more complicated here. But I guess I'm incensed to hate the familiar trauma bonds in the book, which seem to play like a big role in some of the hauntings. Like there's Eleanor, her mother, and her sister. There's Hugh Crane and his children and dead wives. There's the professor and his dick of a wife. There's a lot of tension and control in these relationships that I think the house really feeds off of because those bonds are what have in turn made the house horrible. And like that's something that you see really transposed well in Mike Flanagan's series and that I think you really don't see so much in like the original film, like the Haunting film from 1963, but like is very present in the book, I think. And like, it makes me miserable. Like, I'm just like, like, God, it all comes back to family. It all comes back to blood, and it's just so miserable. Like, where was Dr. Phil?
Where's Dr. Phil when you
Where
need
was he in God, where was this? Like, rural Pennsylvania in 1950 something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
What's his excuse?
What's his excuse? None, I bet. How about you? Did you, like, want to watch anybody die, apparently?
No. I mean, I was on the same page as you. Like, there wasn't anybody where I was just like, man, this character sucks. But maybe, like, Hugh Crane for that weird book that he left for his daughters. I think it was him who did it. It was, like, all of those scary drawings of, like, the 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
That he would, like, have to make them, like, read to bed at night. Like, I mean, he do be dead already, so I guess, like, we're good there. But
yeah.
he didn't seem like the greatest person.
No.
But no, there really wasn't a character that made me go, I don't like you.
Yeah. I feel like, this isn't one of those books. It's very short. It reads more like a short story maybe than like a full-on novella, which is great. Like, because sometimes I don't want to read 700 pages. But then in turn, I think you're not going to have like your black and white villain all the time,
right,
or somebody that you read enough of to get sick of. Yeah. I mean, we'll keep it positive then. Let's talk about our peaks and valleys. What was your first peak about this book?
My first peak was that I loved finding all of the lines and the parallels in the book that was incorporated in the show. I don't know if I've said this already, but I freaking love the show on Netflix. It's so good. I love that even though the Netflix show wasn't a direct adaptation, it still used so much from the original novel. So that was really cool. The obvious examples being Hill House itself, obviously. And the names of the characters like Eleanor, Theodora, Luke, Mr. and Mrs. Dudley, Hugh Crane. I think even Dr. Montague was in the show as well. And then Eleanor, her last name was Vance. So we saw that as well. There are so many lines that came from the book that were used in the show, like the opening and the closing line, the insist on your cup of stars. But even like ones that you wouldn't even think of that weren't like super important, I feel like, to the plot. Like there's a line when Theo says, like, in the book, that she threw a brick through a greenhouse window and says that she thought about it for a while, and then she says, but also the lovely crash, which in the show Theo says that. And it's just like, that didn't necessarily have to be in there, but like it is, and I just think that's cool, like that they use even like the non-important lines. And then Journey's End and Lovers Meeting, and then Come Home Eleanor on the walls, or Bring Home Eleanor. Like it was like creepy but like cool, and I just thought it was really cool. Theo in general was well adapted in the show because she had basically all the same mannerisms, attitude as the book Theo, right down to her telepathic abilities and even her sexuality, which I thought was really cool how they adapted it. I love the imagery of dancing throughout Hill House because, as we were talking before, that was such a prominent scene in the show for when Nellie goes back to Hill House and she dances through with the people who aren't actually there, and it's so sad. Oh, in the book, there's a scene where Eleanor thinks that she's holding Theo's hand, but it turns out to be a phantom. And then there's a super similar scene where Theo thinks she's holding Nellie's hand. And, it's like so creepy, but so well done. And I just think it's really cool when the people creating an adaptation of something pay attention to the details of the things they're adapting. Yeah. And they clearly cared. So, like, they were creating their own story, but they cared so much about what they were taking it from and what it was deriving from. So I really respect Mike Flanagan and everybody else who worked on the show for that.
Yeah, I find that, like, in terms of, like, book adaptations, this was one of my favorites because while it didn't exactly, like, transfer from the source material, it didn't matter because they still told a really interesting story. Like, and because I feel like The Haunting has been adapted so many other times, it's like, okay, now it's going to be a Netflix series. I don't know, can I watch this same plot again for the 4th time? Right. And the answer is no, you don't have to. We'll create something different that uses a lot of the same themes, but like overall the message is there. And I was like really happy about that because I think it made it more adaptable for like younger audiences that maybe haven't read the original book and haven't either A, might not be interested in watching a movie from 1963, or B, watching a really bad movie from 1999. So I'm really, really glad that we have been able to, like, her work continues to live on through this new medium. It's really exciting. And we'll talk more, I think, about the show in a little bit, but I'm just glad that you were able to pick out so many ways in which the book and the movie, or the book and the television show work together.
It was insane. Like, there'd be things that I'd be reading, I'm like, this is so familiar, or like, oh my god, Shirley said this, or oh, Steven said this, or just even like little things where there was a line about someone wanting to burn down Hill House and not thinking that it actually would burn, and I'm just like, yeah, Luke tried to burn down Hill House and it did not go down. Like, just all there, like every page there was something that they used, and I think that was really cool. Yeah,
it's I think you can definitely tell that, like, the Flanagan and the writers really appreciated the book and like respected Shirley Jackson as a writer, and that's what they thought about when they adapted. So, and we're going to talk a little bit here later about how the show compares to a book, but it might be better for us to maybe like think about that a little now while we're on
might
the
as well if we're already talking about it.
You said that you really appreciated that there was so much that was adapted so well. Talk more about that.
Yeah, it just, the attention to detail was really good, and honestly, this is just going to turn me talking about the show now because I love it so much. I feel like I don't usually seek out horror and watch it by myself because who does? But it's not just something where I'm like, oh, I have time to watch something, let me watch a horror movie. Like, I just don't go to that unless like it's specifically October and my friends and I are getting together and watching horror movies. But I remember when Hill House came out, I was just like, oh, this is what everyone's talking about, and it's fall time, so I feel like, you know what, I'm gonna be with the times and I'm gonna actually like sit down and watch this scary show. And so I sat down to watch the scary show, and I came for the spooks, and I stayed for the emotional toll it took on me. Because this show is so freaking heavy. It deals with a lot of heavy topics and just grief and its effects on people, and it's so, in my opinion, so well done, and it genuinely is just such a sad story. So if you don't want to watch a sad story, don't watch it. You will not be happy. But I just thought the story was so interesting. I loved how, like, so there's 5 siblings, and like each episode starts with the oldest sibling, and then it focuses on Steven, and then Shirley, and then Theo, and then Luke, and then Nell. Like, it focuses so much on the characters, not only as adults, but as children. And it's also one of the best casted shows I've seen in my life, because most of the kids all look like they could grow up to be exactly like their adult counterpart is. So I just thought that was wild. And just the way, like, I feel like sometimes when you have a story that's like, oh, we're going to focus on this character as a child, like, and they go back and forth, like, it doesn't always read well, because sometimes I'm like, okay, why do I need this scene? It doesn't matter. Or, oh my god, why are we going back to when they're kids? Like, I don't care. Like, I already know how this turns out. But, like, it's a mystery for it, too, because you're trying to piece together, like, what happened to their mom, and then what actually happened to Nellie, and then what's going on with the house. And, like, they go back and forth so often between them as kids and then them as adults, but it's just also seamless. And it's all pieced together really well, and the way it comes together, like, it really does pay off. And then take a lot of good artistic liberties with it too, because episode 6 is like comprised of maybe like 3 continuous shots throughout the entire episode. It cuts between the present day Crane family at the funeral home, and then to them as kids when there's like a really big storm happening, and it's just so seamless. Like, when you're watching it for the first time, you don't notice it, and maybe if you don't look for it, you won't notice it, but like after a while you're like, they haven't made a cut at all, which I thought was just really cool, and like really was really cool storytelling to go back and forth. And I feel like that episode in itself was a work of art. And then another like fun thing that I really liked about this show was that there are hidden ghosts throughout the entire series that are just there in the background, which I think is the coolest element ever, because that's how ghosts are in real life. Like, you're not looking for them, they're just kind of there.
Right.
And so I thought that was like a really cool detail. They're like, either you see them or you don't, but if you see them, they're going to spook you. And like half the times I was spooked was just from like accidentally noticing something in the background where I'm like, oh, that thing moved, or what just went past the camera, or oh my God, there's a face behind the ladder thing. Oh, do you not see that? It's just so creepy. I don't know if any of that was really articulate. I just really, really like the show, and I genuinely want to watch it again. Like, I've watched it 3 times, and I don't do that often for this genre. I usually watch it, like, especially with shows, and just like, okay, that was cool. But, like, this one is just, like, every year I come back to it where I'm just like, oh, this is so sad, but it's so good.
Yeah, it really, like, it's probably one of the better Netflix shows by far. And I feel like if you've seen Bly Manor or like Midnight Mass or anything that Mike Flanagan has done in addition to this, they're all really good series. Like, there's a lot of attention to storytelling and like character development that I feel like isn't there with a lot of other shows on Netflix. So it's definitely one of their best. It's very creepy. It's very strange. I feel like Mike Flanagan is kind of like a genius when it comes to creating emotional horror stories. Like, I felt so immersed in the Haunting of Hill House show, though it departs significantly from the source material in terms of kind of the dynamics of the characters in the book. Like, with a lot of these additional familial elements of the story that I didn't know I needed or wanted to be consumed by. Something I pointed this out about the book, but something that I definitely think Flanagan focuses a lot in this series is family trauma cycles, and it's really painful. Like you said, it's a really hard watch. I don't think I could name any more realistic horror story than just like being stuck in some sort of trauma bond with your family, like your siblings and your parents. So the fact that he kind of brings that out, and it's like, this is happening. Oh yeah, and there's ghosts everywhere. It sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
on top of
awful.
all of the shit that you're dealing with, there's also ghosts.
Like, great. How does it fucking get worse, you know? And especially when a lot of these ghosts are like manifestations of the grief of people who have lived in the house or of the Cranes, and it's just like, ow, like, why?
Yeah.
Stop. Yeah. And then I also felt like his conceptualization of Nell is very interesting. Like, in the show, she's isolated by her visions of the bent neck lady, so much so that no one believes her until it's too late. And there were times after watching some of her larger episodes that I just remember sitting with my tea and staring at the wall because there's nothing more jarring than her story. It's really, like, deeply sad.
Yeah, it's so sad. I feel like one of the sadder moments for me was at the end of episode 6 where, so like the family's in the funeral home with and Nellie's like, you know, in the casket, and the casket falls over, and then we get like this voiceover, and it cuts back to little Nellie when she got lost in the house, and then she was saying like, I was right here and you guys couldn't see me. I was like shouting and yelling and you couldn't see me. You just hear her voice, and then it pans over and you just see the ghost of Nellie by her casket when she was trying to get their attention, but they couldn't see her. And it gives me chills every time I watch it because it's just so sad.
It is
and
sad.
it's so beautifully done. But oh my God, I literally, like, today I was like, I really want to, I watched the 1963 The Haunting movie, and then I was like, I really want to rewatch some parts of Hill House, but like I don't have enough time to do it. So I rewatched these 2 guys I watch on YouTube who reacted to the entire series, and I was like, I'm just gonna watch that. And then like even just watching them watch that episode, like I got chills at the end, and I was just like, I just want to cry. This is so sad.
It sucks. Like,
it sucks, dude.
There's something about, like, I think that's like the epitome of her character, right? Is like, she is tragic. Her life is tragic. Yeah. Flanagan talks in an interview about how in the book, when Eleanor comes to the house, she's goes from this completely contained and insular existence to what she perceives as the expansive world around her, and it's just another box for her.
Oh.
And that was like a big thing for the writers, was kind of capturing this theme of the psychological safe spaces that we make for ourselves and our family members, and how much of a challenge it is to tear them down. So I loved that was something that really inspired them, that Shirley Jackson put in their heads, and they were able to use that in the writer's room. So Yeah, I think that's what makes it such a good show. I think that there's clear respect for the source material, and I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Because like Shirley in the novel, Shirley Jackson, not Shirley from the show, she's telling us about this completely repressed young girl who's nowhere near developed enough for the horrific reality of Hill House, and it's like watching someone experience just like a nightmare. And I remember I wrote, like, this is so silly, but I wrote, it's like watching a spring flower exist in a drought for the first time, or the winter's first snowflake fall in hell. And it really does feel like that, like this person who, it's kind of like that, it's a like one of those overarching themes that you'll hear about, and you might have heard about in our last series about school, like books we read in school, which is loss of innocence. Like that's a really big theme in a lot of English teachers' minds. But like it is really, really sad. And I just feel bad. Like I feel nothing but empathy for her and sympathy that like that's the way her life goes.
Yeah, and I think it really says something to Shirley Jackson's writing that you feel so much for this character. Yeah. You've only known her for such a it's a short novel. Like it's only like maybe is it a couple hundred pages at most? Yeah. But you just immediately just want to take her and wrap her up in a blanket and be like, "It's okay, come with me, you'll be safe." Yes. You'll be warm. Yes. Like, oh, poor baby.
Now you mentioned that you also got to watch The Haunting from 1963 today.
I did.
How was that?
It was good. I enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty well done for a 1963 book. I have to admit, like with older movies, I can get pretty distracted easily. I can get distracted easily in general, but it followed the book like wonderfully. It was weird to me that they changed. Maybe it was like a copyright thing, but they changed like the weirdest things. Like instead of Eleanor Vance, she was Eleanor Lance. Yeah. And Dr. Montague had a different name that started with an M. It was just like little things where I'm just like, why? Yeah. like oh, Hill House stood for 90 years, and I'm like, no, it was 80, but good try, I guess. Like close enough.
Highly specific little things here and there.
Yeah, I don't know if it was just something to do with, I don't know. I was like, that was odd to me. But with older movies like that, it's pretty straightforward. And I knew how it was going to end because I did just read the book. So I wasn't like paying full attention to it. And then, some of the effects were a little cheesy for the time. So like, I feel like I'd like to talk to somebody who maybe watched it when it first came out at the time, and like I would like to know how scary it was to them, because like older horror movies to me are just kind of silly, and it's only because of the effects, I feel like, or like the choices of like zooming in on the door, and I'm just like, okay, this is a little bit dramatic, but good try. Mm-hmm. And it may be just because like we have so many different ways of showing that now, or that are more high quality, so it wasn't like creepy to me, but I still thought it was really well done and really well adapted, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was a fun little movie.
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I had the exact opposite reaction. Yeah. I loved it. Just like a fucking banger. I love this movie. I found it kind of like deeply chilling and disturbing.
Really?
I did. I thought the cinematography was phenomenal. I felt like the effects in this adaptation were incredible. I think that just for 1963, there was a lot of attention to like camera angles, things that you wouldn't think about in 1963 that I really appreciated, even more so than I do a lot of modern horror. To the extent that I went out and I was telling my boyfriend about it, and I was like, I think this scared me more than any modern horror film has, with maybe the exception of some of Jordan Peele's work, because it felt so much more like the music was excellent. First of all, like they had a really great soundtrack that I feel like when you have good music to set the tone of a film, like that makes a big difference. But then, like I think about like the early 2000s era of horror. I think of maybe not like some of the classics, but definitely like Insidious and some of like the new modern horror that we watch today that is like, in my opinion, incredibly cheesy and shitty. And it just it struck such a chord for me. Like, and not just that, it was so sexy. Like, it was like the sexiest movie ever. Like, without even meaning to be. Like, Claire Bloom as Theodora. Ah!
Oh yeah, she's great.
Yelled, and she was so like, she was queer. She was a queer woman in this movie. Like, there's this whole scene where Eleanor basically accuses her of being unnatural, and it's like, and that's it means what it means. It is what it is. There's no other interpretation of it. Like,
correct.
She's a queer woman, and not just that, but she's like, and I'll talk about this more when I talk about my peak. She's a queer woman who doesn't die at the end. So
yeah, that's nice.
it was just so good. There were so many times, like, explicitly, I think about when something was laughing maniacally through the walls, and then the hand-holding scene, and the scene at the very end where right before she hits the trees, she sees the doctor's wife, or like when she looks up and she sees the doctor's wife through the like when she opens the door.
Top,
yeah. Oh my God. I was just so into it. I was like watching it at home by myself in the night, and I had like a nightmare last night about it because I just thought it was so well done. Like, the lighting, like, so good. And then I think about like the 1999 adaptation, which was very CGI.
I didn't see that.
I think just like, to the extent that I think some, like, what I loved about what I think is the marvel about The Haunting is it uses a lot of like classic filmmaking and like techniques and effects, and I just so appreciate that in comparison to, like, I don't know, like the fucking nun lady from The Nun. Like, I'll take it any day. It was, I have nothing but praise for that movie. I would literally, today when I was sitting here like getting ready to do this, I was like, I should watch it again. Like, it just made me feel so scared. Like, I really, like, a couple times when Vishwas like opened up the door last night, and I like jumped because I was like, I'm watching a scary movie. Like, oh, so good.
Yeah. Well, like, don't get me wrong. I thought it was a good film. Like, I thought, like, especially for the time, I thought it was really well done. They just don't creep me out as much. And I don't know if it's just because it's like of the different ways of filmmaking, which again, still well done, but like the pounding on the walls that they hear at night, I'm just like, okay, sound effects. like it's, I think what's scarier to me is like a realistic, like, I'm actually knocking on your wall than like the really big, like, almost like gong sound that they had.
Oh, I love that. Film. That scared me.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, wow, like that's like, because it sounds like it sounds like they're hitting something that maybe it's just like going through the whole house and echoing, and I love that. Like, I was like, ooh, like the fact that I had a little bit of a twang to it, like a little bit of a note to it, scared me. Yeah. Like, I was like, oh, like,
interesting.
The fuck is that? Yeah, I absolutely. I'm a diehard fan of like old horror films, old haunted house films. Like, they're so good. Yeah. Ooh. And I think also, not to like ramble about this, but I like big passion about this. Like, I think like movies that are like horror films in black and white sometimes are scarier. Fun fact. Like, I think about like The Lighthouse, which is like A24, and it's like high-key disturbing, and I feel like I wouldn't find it as disturbing if it was in, you know, color, because it forces you to use your imagination, you know?
Yeah, I watched The Lighthouse. I think I laughed through most of it, but it had, like, I think I have to watch it again, because I feel like I don't give that movie enough justice, because I don't know, that maybe it's because I watched it with Sam, and like her and I like to laugh at a lot of stuff together, but like that movie, I need to rewatch it. I need to rewatch it for what it is, because I remember thinking, I don't get it. So I mean, maybe that's me.
That's kind of, I feel like A24 is famous for films where it's like you just kind of, you're like, huh.
I think the ending was what did it for me. I was just like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like,
it's so cool. It's such a cool, fun film, and not at all disturbing as fuck. Yeah. So
interesting. No, that's cool to know about you. We have very different views on those types of stuff. It's fun.
Yeah. So coming back to our peaks, then I can talk a little bit about my first one. I think for me, what makes The Haunting of Hill House, the novel, so horrifying is that it forces us to confront a very dreary reality, one that feeds on fear and loneliness and isolation. So like, no matter how Eleanor tries to fight back against this reality with these visions of contentment, of friendship, romance, new beginnings, etc. It doesn't matter. The house has singled her out and isolated her. There's nothing she can do to move on from that. And as we've been saying, that hopefulness is ultimately something that isn't enough to fight back against the house's darkness. Lee Mandelo writes about this in this really great essay, puts it into words a little better than I could. Eleanor is isolated in terms of her sense of self, her personal agency, her independence, and as a result has no grasp of her sense of sexuality, affection, or relationships that aren't dependent and forced. She is, as we see on her drive up to Hill House, prone to long fantasies and flights of imagination. She lies habitually, since she doesn't have stories of her own to tell that she's willing to admit. There's nothing for or of Eleanor that she has the right to call her own until the moment of her suicide, when she thinks, I'm really doing it. I'm really doing it all by myself. At last, this is me. I'm really doing it by myself. And like, yeah, like that's exactly right. She has nothing for herself.
I'm starting to cry. That's really sad.
It's really sad.
Oh my God.
It's really sad because she really doesn't have anything for herself. And I feel like if you're somebody who's ever been isolated, like I can't stress this enough, that's jarring to read. Like if you've ever spent your life just away from other people, either sheltered because of like either your living conditions, your family, poverty, mental health, just your own choice. If you've ever been isolated in your life and you go out into the real world and you have to do real people things, it is really fucking difficult because you have to kind of put on this fake sense of self that is completely underdeveloped. And I mean, there's like a sense of a likeness that I felt, having felt that isolation before, reading that. And that's what made me feel like even more frightened by this book. I was like, oh, I chillingly relate to that sense of like feeling deeply isolated and a little like sheltered from things. Not so much anymore, but you know, when I was younger, when I was, you know, coming out of school, when I was going to college, things like that. And it's really sad, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. It's just
no, really I know sad. It's very sad. Yeah, it hits, man. And I feel like because you've never had the opportunity to create your own lived experiences, it's so much easier to dive straight into your own manufactured fantasies instead of living in the present, which is exactly what she does. And you see that, and over again, like it just like makes me sad. Like I feel like when I was in school, like when I was living in a really bad home situation, I did that. I was like, I'm going to dream about this thing that's better than the life I'm living now. And that was like my escape from reality. And I feel like whenever I read this book, I go back there and in my head and I'm like, God, that sucks. It's like we were saying, it's like, which bad thing do you want? The bad thing or the other bad thing? No, you cannot have the cool, fun, fake reality you created for yourself. No, you can't have that. You know what I mean? So... yeah. And then, like, you take somebody, I just thinking about this, like, you take somebody who's already that vulnerable and you put them in a place that's got really bad vibes. It's like the equivalent of being in liminal space. It's like completely unearthing to be there. You probably experience derealization. You're probably like, oh, this is what real life is. It's this. And it's the only thing you've ever known in your life aside from your life taking care of your mom. So you accept it, and then you accept it so much that it draws you in, and then, you know, you kind of, that's how you learn about her fate, is that's kind of what happens to her, is it draws her in and then she dies. So yeah it's really like, I've done a lot of like journaling about this book and writing, and it always comes back to that for me, is it's terrifying to me how isolated she is, that this is all she will ever have, you know?
Yeah.
Like her white lines will only ever be like a figment of her imagination. She'll never have her cup of stars. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's horrifying. That's scary. That's not scary in the way that, like, you know, other things are scary. It's genuinely, like, it's not like, I say this later on, but it's not like, it doesn't scare you like Michael Myers or like the Universal Halloween Horror Nights would. It's nothing like that. It's not overt. It's not obvious. It's horrible. It's horrifying because it's horrible, you know?
I think I'm just now getting the book.
Yeah.
You know? Like, it's not about the ghost. It's about the ghost within yourself.
It is.
Like, and confronting that, and then just the coming to terms with the isolated life that you've had and, like, not being able to have an escape. Fuck Shirley Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't. What? Oh no.
It gets me.
I love it when like, okay, I finished this book yesterday and like I'm like, cool, okay, cool, cool book about a haunted house, I guess. And then you really start to sit with it, like on the podcast that you're recording. And then you suddenly get the realization like, hey, come here. It's more about the ghosts.
Yeah.
It's more than the ghosts.
It's more than the ghosts.
And
and that's the central theme for most horror, right? Is it's more than the ghosts.
Having a crisis.
Or it's like
it's always more than the ghosts.
Or it is about the ghosts, but the ghosts. Oops, I almost lost my microphone. It's about the ghosts, but the ghosts represent something. So, yeah, it's woof woof bark bark meow. You know, but what else did you like about this book?
Well, after that crisis, I thought the writing in general, even though maybe I just got the point of it, was just gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the imagery was perfect, and not only being able to picture the house and the scenes so perfectly, but the feelings of uneasiness in Eleanor. There's a moment in the book where Eleanor starts listing facts about herself, almost as if she's reassuring herself that she is in fact real and alive. And she also keeps saying like, Theo, like we're actually here. We're here in Hill House. And Theo's like, yeah, girl, let's go. Like, I know. And Eleanor's like, no, but don't you get it? We're here. Like she has to reassure herself like where she is and what's happening. And that these things are actually happening to her, and just the general, did that actually happen? Or is that in my head, like the whole like whose hand was I holding moment? Like it's like, was that real or not? And just those feelings were really well written, and reading it, and I was just like, I'm not sure now, but let's keep reading to find out. Like, let's get you out of here. Oh no, you never do.
Yeah, this poor woman's psyche in this book is so devastating, because like it is a lot of, did that just happen? You know, like. And you find yourself asking the same thing, and that's what makes her so great, is she's kind of this unreliable narrator where you're like, you don't know if what actually happened.
Yeah, I love an unreliable narrator.
Yeah, like Guillermo del Toro talks about this a lot in the foreword of this book, which is something he does at my rendition, or my copy of the book, by the way, is he tells Guillermo del Toro shows up and he's like, hey. And that's what he says. He's like,
hey.
He's like, what's chilling is that Shirley Jackson is genuinely just like kind of like, or saying that Eleanor is, maybe she's experiencing these things, or maybe it's all in her head. Either the house is haunted or she's insane. It's one of the two. And I'm like, or maybe it's both, you know? And I think it's probably closer to that.
Yeah, and I feel like that's kind of why I like in the book when Dr. Montague is like, you guys didn't research this house before you came, and like the three of them are like, nah, and they're like, what should we know? And he's like, well, I'm not going to tell you right now. I'll tell you tomorrow, so this doesn't like skew anything for you guys, right? Because I feel like when you know you're in a haunted house, you're gonna, whether you mean to or not, you're gonna be hearing stuff. You're gonna be seeing stuff, because your mind knows like there could be ghosts here, and you hear one little noise, and you're like, is that a ghost, or is this house just 100 and 200 years old?
Like, yeah. It's like when you convince your friend that she's taking an edible, but it's actual just like a regular gummy.
Wait.
Yeah, I think for me, the book, what I know about this book is it's like, it's gay. It's a gay book. Like,
sure was.
Book was written in the 1950s, early 1960s.
It was like 1959.
1959, yeah. And it's gay. Sci-Fi, from the Sci-Fi Channel, Sci-Fi Wire has an article called "The Lasting Importance of Haunting of Hill House's Theodora," that is really good, because it describes the character's queerness and Nell's and how they're represented in the book versus its two film adaptations, and then finally in Flanagan's Netflix series. So something Sarah Century, who wrote this article, says is that discussions of Bury Your Gaze and the many brutal deaths of queer characters are ongoing, but in that conversation, Theo stands out for being an imperfect and fallible queer woman, consistently being subjected to life-threatening situations, yet still walking away from them, evolving rather than fading away. And that really sticks with me, because if you don't know, the bury your gaze trope, for folks at home, is when a prominent queer character is killed off early in the narrative. It's something we most recently saw, and there's been some discussion about with House of Dragons, and generally like everything else, because like,
oh no,
one thing about being gay is you die a lot in like every mainstream movie where you're there.
Yeah, you know? They're like, look, we have representation for 2 episodes.
They said, look, you have representation. and in the grave. Like, woo!
Oh,
Good
no.
luck. Yeah. So, like, I love that because she is so valuable to queer audiences because of her resilience. There's a lot of negative portrayals of queer women, especially in like early literature. But she's brave and she's stylish, she's intellectual, she's very intuitive. Like she's the blueprint, you know. She is the moment. Yeah. She's an icon. And like she's an enduring queer female who doesn't end up dead at the end of the book. It's great. It's a great, like, I read it and then I remember just thought this, I looked at the year it was like written in 8 times and I was like, Shirley! Like,
well, like, I was reading it and I was just like, hello? Like, I was looking at the notes that I took during this and there's a line where Eleanor goes like, she is lovely, Eleanor thought, turning to look. I wish I were lovely. And I was like, hello?
Yeah.
And then Theo goes, fellow babe in the woods, let's go exploring. And I was like, hello? Mm-hmm. Then there's a scene where they're just holding hands and my only note was the pride flag. And I was just like, this is happening. This is great.
It was happening.
This is I wasn't expecting it for such an older novel, which is very surprising. A wonderful surprise.
Syracuse University alum, they know what's up when they write novels.
Is she an SU alum? What is happening?
I opened up Tumblr, and if you live in the DC area, and you open up Tumblr, and do you get the same fucking Pepco thing like every time you open the app? Because if so, let's talk and let's gang up on Pepco.
Why is that happening to you?
I don't know. But what were you saying? My apologies.
Oh, I said Shirley Jackson's an SU alum?
She is an SU alum. She's my
Go
favorite
Orange!
SU alum. Like, when I got to SU, I was like, do, and they were like, Joseph R. Biden. And I was like, yeah, sure. And then they were like, Mike Tirico. And I was like, yeah, all right, okay. And then they were like, Vanessa Williams. And I was like, oh, And then they were like, Shirley Jackson. And I was like, yeah! Like stomping. I love that woman. Yep. Yes, she is.
That's so fun.
Yeah, I fucking love her. Yeah. My favorite SU alum. She actually transferred from, I think, was it BU? She transferred to somewhere, and she was like, I don't like it. And then she went to SU, and that's where she met her husband. And I just think,
yeah,
that's nice.
She was at the University of Rochester.
Oh.
And then she was also in SU.
U of R. Okay. Yeah.
U of R, baby.
We love that. Why did I get Boston from U of R?
I don't know.
Predicament of why I don't understand geography. But the reason I got on Tumblr is because I wanted to find a line from the movie, and it's where they're sitting in the dining hall, and Eleanor says, what are you afraid of, to Theo? And Theo says, of knowing what I really want. And
yeah,
I will take that with me to my grave. I will take that with me to my fucking grave, bitch. Like,
that's a solid line.
Like, I'm like gay.
Yeah.
Like, of course she does. Of course she does. Of knowing what she really wants. Of knowing what she really wants. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I love this book. I love Theo. I love that Theo continues to exist as a lesbian canonically all the way up into 2022 through Mike Flanagan series. Mm-hmm. She is very important to me. So
she's very special to me.
Yes. So what did you not like about this book, Caitlin?
Like most of my values on this show, I would like to say this is a me problem.
Yeah.
This has nothing to do with the book. Okay, this is a great book. I loved it so much. But this was the first horror novel that I read, or spooky novel. Because I feel like it's not, I wouldn't say Hill House is horror. It's more like gothic and spooky, I guess. But so when I was reading it, I was like, all right, let's see if reading can make me all scared and uncomfy. Mm-hmm. And I can safely say I was not spooked at all by this book. I still really enjoyed it. I love the story. Had a great time. I was just hoping that I could read something and for me to be like, oh no, like scary. Like I wanted to feel those feelings. And for this, I was just like, this is a cool story. Next. So like I just personally wasn't spooked, but I don't think that has anything to do with the story. It's more of just what is going to actually scare me.
Yeah, what your preferences are for experiencing fear. Yeah, I get that.
So this book didn't do it for me fear-wise, but still really well done. How about you? What was your valley?
My valley is this book did deadass scare me. Like,
nice.
Not like a valley. Like, it's kind of my peak, but also it's my valley because, like, I need to get sleep at night, and I can't do that if I'm up in the middle of the night, like, listening to every sound in my face and being super hypersensitive to that, which is exactly what happened to me last October when I read this book for the first time. Because, like I said before, like, this book, it's not overtly frightening. Like, it's not like, ooh, like, there's a guy and he's like boogie, you know. It's like, this book scares me because there's
he's like boogie.
There's no, like, I don't know, there's no, like, face that you can't put a face to what scares you. Like, there's no ghost character, there's no ghost figure. This is the mistake that I think that the 1999 version of this of The Haunting made was just putting this CGI motherfucker on everything.
That's stupid.
But what, like, there's nothing overt or obvious about the horrors of this book. This book doesn't tell you to be scared. It lets you read it and then scare yourself.
That's what it should be.
Like, the holding hands scene, I remember reading that for the first time. I remember reading about the knocking. I remember reading about Eleanor come home. I remember reading all of those things and just being really freaked out in my house. And, like, reading it late at midnight while my partner was asleep and just not having a good time. Like, and that takes a lot because I'm not really somebody who typically gets scared. Like, I can watch, like, a horror film and be like, oh yeah, you know, like, I used to be kind of scared of horror films. I've recently become somewhat, like, I've noticed that when I actually do watch them, I'm like, you know, this fucked with me. Like, I really like this book. It's like maybe my favorite horror book of all time. Like, maybe my favorite of all time. Yeah. So
love that for you.
So we talked a little bit about our peaks, our valleys. It's time for us to rate the book.
Woohoo!
How many journeys ending and lovers meeting would you give this book on a scale of 1 to 5?
First of all, I loved the repetition of that throughout the book.
Oh, yeah.
I think I highlighted everyone. I wish I counted them. But I just, there's something about it, and it made me sad. If anything, this book made me really sad. Especially now that I've had more time to think about it. But I give it 4 out of 5 journeys ending and lovers meeting. I thought it was a really cool story. The writing alone makes me want to read more of Shirley Jackson's work. I did read The Lottery beforehand, but other than that, I haven't read a lot of her stuff, so I do want to read more. And I kind of want to try out some more haunted type books to see if I continue to like them. But I don't know. This one kind of takes the cake for me. I say as this is the only horror novel that I've read so far. Yeah. So setting a really high bar. I really enjoyed it. Again, more sad than scary for me, but that's okay. Yeah. I really liked it.
Yeah.
How about you?
100 million bajillion for me. As we already know, I'm obsessed with this book. It's one of my all-time favorite horror novels. I love Shirley Jackson. I love her mind. I love this book. I feel like everything that I could say, I don't have, like, the energy or maybe, like, articulation to tell you. But I can tell you I love this book like I love Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I love this book like I love Bronte's Wuthering Heights, or Anne Rice's Interview with a Vampire, or Jackson's The Lottery, or We Have Always Lived in a Castle, or American Psycho. Women know how to do horror like no one else because they live it every day in one way or another. And that really fucks me, man. Yeah. Like, horror is one of my favorite genres, and Shirley's doing it like no one else. Like, thanks, girl. Thanks for the memes.
She really did it.
Thank you. Thanks for being one of my favorite ghost best friends, Shirley.
Shirley's actually here with us now.
She actually fucking is. What's that, Shirley? She says, go orange, because she's an SU alum, in case you forgot already. So that's our show. Thank you.
Yay!
Thank you for listening to By Moonlight. Tune in next time when all work and no play makes Emberlyn a dull boy with Stephen King's The Shining.
Ooh.